Hello and welcome to my second playthrough from the TCS title Objective Schmidt. I've moved on from the first scenario we attempted last time, and we're now at historical scenario 3, Counterattack at Schmidt. It's the early morning of the 4th of November and the Germans are starting to react early on the 3rd, the 3rd Battalion of the 112th Regiment for the US surprised the Germans and captured Schmidt, which we see in front of us. But now the Germans are looking to attack it back. To do this, they've got a force of 3 infantry battalions, the 1st, 2nd and 3rd from the 155th Regiment, backed up by the 1st Battalion of the 16 Panzer Regiment of 17 Panthers, so quite a formidable force. The aim of the scenarios is pretty simple really. The Germans need to capture Schmidt, which is quite a large area by the standards of the Objective Schmidt map, and quite strung out, so quite a big area for a single battalion to try and defend from the Americans' point of view. And in reality their real objective is just to hang on as long as possible, inflict as many casualties as possible, and then retreat north. One of the special conditions of this scenario is only axes 48 and below are in play, so the Americans, if they can retreat off the board, their units don't count for damages and step losses for the Germans. So really it's a question of a fighting retreat. Germans really have to control Schmidt, and a major victory is if they can eliminate 25 or more US steps. The sort of levels for the Americans is they shift the German victory down 1 if they can destroy 15 to 29, and shift it down 2 for 30 or more steps. Probably an important point for the Americans to consider is that every German vehicle, so those Panthers, are worth 3 steps, so they're pretty valuable. So that's the key part of the map. I'm going to be following the historical sort of orders of the day. So the US will have a hasty defence of Schmidt. The Germans have 1 battalion advancing from the west down this road, that's the 2nd, and they have the 1st and the 3rd attacking from the east, supported by the 1st Battalion, 16th Panzer Division. So that's the setup. Now let's have a look at the op sheets. So first up is the American op sheet. I drew this one up first. It's quite simple really, it's a hasty defence. I've assigned areas of Schmidt to each company. So as you can see on here, there's 3 areas for I, K and L companies. I've weighted the defence towards the east because that's where most of the Germans are coming from. And there's an M company, which is a battalion, weapons and machine guns, and the mortars basically will be based around the centre of them, or the mortars will be, and the machine guns spread out, so they're doing support as required. Rally point really reflects the requirement or the opportunity they have to retreat off the map, so that's actually off the map, and everybody will fall back that way if we deem this failed. There's only 13 turns to this scenario, so there's not really going to be a lot of opportunity to switch tactics, but what I have done is I have drawn up a equivalent prepared defence which will start accumulating turns, although very very slowly, as they're likely to be shot at most of the time. That'll give me a small chance of actually being able to dig in maybe in the last few turns, which might prove vital if the German attack hasn't been very successful. So that's the Americans, pretty simple from their part. For the Germans I drew up 2 alternative plans, so the Americans didn't quite know what I'd be up to, and neither did I. We're going to decide between them randomly. The first one had the 2nd Battalion attacking over on the sort of plateau just above Schmidt, that would mean they should be at a line of sight all the way until they get to the right to the end here. Aim of that is that I wanted one battalion attacking from the north to try and seal Schmidt in, maximise my ability to basically wipe out the Americans and get those step losses. The other two companies came in on two axes, so I'm going to try and see if I can create some crossfire opportunities. Gelb and Weiss, that's the first and the third, with a company or troop, which is the right term there, of tanks supporting each one of those. Mortars and weapons will be held back, obviously, just to support. So that was the first option. Second option is slightly different. In this case, I assigned the first battalion to sweep round from the north. Actually, it's a bit grand because actually I think the hex rows mean I can only really just touch that wood before turning down, but has the same effect of trying to stop the Americans from escaping. In this case, the second battalion will come through the woods, and the third battalion will advance through Harshide. So again, hopefully be able to create some crossfire opportunities. And in fact, this was the one when I did a dice roll that came up tops. So this is the one that we're going to be attacking on. So I will just remove that one to avoid confusion. So how did that pan out for the troops? I'll show you that in just a moment. So this is the setup. I did the Americans first, and before they knew which op sheet the Germans would be attacking under. So again, main idea was to have two platoons up front for each company in their sector, with a third in reserve. Mortars are all in the middle to provide support both for the companies, and right in the middle here you've got the actual battalion mortars as well. I've grouped them together where they can fire together too. So if I do want a big fire, they can fire together. They're single hex, so they can respond to Overwatch. So there's been a lot of debate on Board Game Geek just recently about mortar fire. I think I've sussed out how it works, and that will give me my best opportunity. I Company is taking this quarter, K Company this quarter, with the dividing lines down the road and down this spine of houses accordingly. L's got the most to do, but I've given them minefields to try and block off what I thought would be an obvious line of approach for the Germans. But they are quite stretched thin, so that they're all their platoons are up looking for opportunities to fire from the start. I think this platoon will soon realise that they can move up once the Germans start going. What I have realised though since that, and since when I went to set up the Germans, is I have left a hole in my defence. There actually is no line of sight to these hexes here from the American defenders as they stand. This is because when you fire down a hex line, you basically can choose someone looking for one of our cats. So when you fire down a spine, you can choose which of the or either of them to see if they block it, and as these fill the whole hex, these will block line of sight. So he's blocked from there, he's blocked out to there, he'll be blocked out to there. So actually I have handed a line of approach on a plate to the Germans. So it's going to be really crucial to see who wins the initiative on the first line. Otherwise, they're going to be in pretty silly. But I'm not going to change it. I'd set them up, and then I only noticed that when the Germans were setting up, which is what would have happened. I suppose it's an example of where you allocate different sectors. Each one is looking at their own sector, thinking they've got it covered, and we'll see how that plays out. From a German point of view, these are in the woods, ready to go. They just as far as they possibly could be from their setup point. I've taken a bit of a risk, so I've got a whole company in each hex. I'm but as they're in total wood hexes, and with no roads, they basically can't be spotted by the American planes. Well, actually, as they're moving, there's a 1 in 6 chance. I'd have to roll a 6, and as there's only a third chance the weather will even allow the Americans to roll for planes, and then only a third of the time they get planes. That would mean it's a 1 in 54 chance that they actually could attack any of those, so I think I can live with that. On this side of it, though, we've had to be a bit more respectful of the fact that there might be P-47s in the air, so things are more spread out. I'm going to lead with my first company on 1st Battalion up through into the woods, followed by the Panthers. Well, actually, as you'll see, the idea is the Panthers will advance first to get into position to shoot if any of the Americans were then to fire an overwatch. 2nd and 3rd companies are in the woods waiting for their turn to advance out and follow them on. Here, 11th company, as the best and most powerful of the companies, is going to lead the initial shot assault through Harshide, again with two companies of two platoons presumably of tanks following. The 3rd is in reserve. Both of them have their mortars back, but with plenty of range to cover. Again, I've grouped them all together to get the maximum punch if I want to. The 3rd battalions are here. 9th is hiding in these houses, 10th hiding in the woods, and we'll move forward. The artillery counters, there's 3 each. Americans have an advantage in ammunition, but not as much as you'd usually expect. They're just there so I remember, so I think there's going to be a fair bit of artillery once we get into range. One of the key things is going to be what sort of weather we're going to get. In my last game it was pretty dismal for most of the first part, with a visibility of 3 or 5, which means you've got to get up close and personal before the shooting can really start. We'll see how this one pans out, but it's going to be pretty similar, I should think. So that's the dispositions, that's how we're set up. I'm going to crack on with the first turn, and that's what you'll see in the next video.